Suddenly Amish, new series, Tuesday at 10 on TLC.
Suddenly Amish. TLC's bold reality experiment turns outsiders into Amish for a radical cultural test, a radical reversal of perspective. Suddenly Amish. TLC's most ambitious cultural experiment brings outsiders into a closed world. TLC is set to debut one of its most unconventional and provocative reality series to date with Suddenly Amish, premiering Tuesday, January 13th, 2026 at 10:00 p.m. Eastern Time/Pacific Time. The series marks a deliberate reversal of the familiar Amish television narrative. Rather than following Amish individuals exploring the modern world, Suddenly Amish turns the camera inward, documenting what happens when 6 non-Amish individuals abandon their contemporary, English lifestyles and attempt to live within the rigid boundaries of a deeply traditional Amish community in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. This is not a short-term immersion or cultural exchange. From the outset, participants are informed that the experience is designed to test whether conversion to Amish life is a genuine possibility. The stakes are high, the rules are strict, and the consequences, emotional, spiritual, and social, are permanent. An unprecedented invitation. Within Amish culture, outsiders are rarely allowed into daily communal life. While Amish youth are granted a period known as Rumspringa, during which they may explore the outside world before choosing whether to be baptized into the church, the inverse scenario is virtually unheard of. In Suddenly Amish, a progressive group of Amish leaders and families makes the controversial decision to invite outsiders in. The motivation is both pragmatic and philosophical. As Amish communities face declining retention rates and internal challenges, leaders involved in the experiment believe that welcoming outsiders who are actively seeking faith, structure, and purpose may help strengthen the community's future. This decision alone creates tension, not only between Amish and English participants, but also within the Amish community itself, where tradition and preservation are paramount. Immediate culture shock. From the moment the 6 participants arrive, the contrast between their former lives and Amish reality is stark. There is no transition period. Technology is surrendered immediately. Phones, watches, modern clothing, and personal grooming items are removed. Electricity, indoor plumbing, mirrors, and modern hygiene routines disappear overnight. Participants must quickly adapt to pre-dawn wake-up times, manual labor, including farming and household chores, communal meals prepared without modern appliances, strict dress codes that erase individual fashion identity, clear gender roles and behavioral expectations, a limited privacy and constant community oversight. Every action is observed. Every misstep is noted. The experiment demands total submission to the rules, not as guests, but as potential converts. The emotional cost of simplicity. While Amish life is often romanticized as peaceful and grounded, Suddenly Amish reveals the emotional and psychological weight of such simplicity. Participants are forced to confront the parts of themselves shaped by independence, self-expression, and constant stimulation. Without distractions, unresolved emotional struggles surface quickly. Silence becomes overwhelming. Repetition becomes draining. For some participants, the absence of choice is comforting. For others, it becomes suffocating. The 6 outsiders, motivations and breaking points. Each participant enters the Amish world with deeply personal reasons, but no amount of preparation fully equips them for what follows. Kendra, identity without visibility. Kendra, a 33-year-old former dancer and content creator from California, enters the experiment seeking relief from years of body image struggles and the pressure of being visually consumed by others. Her decision to join Amish life is rooted in a desire for internal validation rather than external approval. However, Amish modesty strips her of visibility entirely. Her body becomes irrelevant, but so does her voice. As Amish expectations for women emphasize obedience, humility, and service, Kendra struggles with the loss of autonomy she once believed she wanted. Her journey becomes less about body acceptance and more about whether erasing herself is a form of healing or avoidance. Judah, belonging versus control. At 22, Judah arrives as the youngest participant and arguably the least prepared. A self-described bougie rapper from Missouri, he presents himself as confident and adaptable, but quickly reveals cracks beneath the bravado. Judah longs for belonging and discipline, yet privately battles severe germ-related anxiety. The Amish environment, barns, animals, mud, communal tools, becomes an immediate psychological threat. As his discomfort escalates, Judah must choose between confronting a lifelong fear or retreating to the control his former life provided. His struggle becomes one of the most visible internal battles of the season. Matt. Rebuilding after collapse. Matt, a 34-year-old newly divorced father from Texas, enters the Amish community seeking spiritual renewal and emotional stability. Unlike some participants, he does not idealize Amish life. Instead, he views it as a framework that might help him rebuild after personal failure. Physically capable and emotionally open, Matt initially adapts well to the labor-intensive lifestyle. However, the absence of emotional outlets and the inability to communicate freely about his past begin to weigh on him. His journey centers on whether discipline alone can heal emotional wounds, or whether vulnerability requires a different kind of support. Aaron. Faith meets reality. Aaron, 40, is the son of a pastor and enters the experiment with a deep respect for religious structure. He feels spiritually aligned with Amish devotion, but his participation introduces one of the experiment's most complex dilemmas. Aaron has a hearing disability that requires modern assistive technology. Amish rules prohibit such devices, forcing both Aaron and the community to confront the limits of accommodation within tradition. His storyline becomes a moral crossroads, whether faith communities can adapt without compromising identity, or whether tradition must come at the cost of inclusion. Esmeralda. Reinvention or erasure. At 25, Esmeralda arrives seeking the stability of a traditional family life she never experienced growing up. Her desire for structure is genuine, but her identity is deeply entwined with glamour, appearance, and self-presentation. Amish life demands complete aesthetic conformity. Mirrors are removed. Jewelry is forbidden. Clothing becomes uniform. As Esmeralda attempts to comply, she grapples with the loss of self-expression and questions whether transformation requires self-denial or self-destruction. Billy Joe, when idealism meets discipline. At 44, Billy Joe appears to be the most prepared. A lifelong admirer of Amish culture, she already dresses traditionally and views the experience as a calling rather than an experiment. Yet idealism quickly collides with reality. Amish life is not simply modest clothing and slow living, it is obedience, sacrifice, and submission to authority. As rules tighten and expectations rise, Billy Joe must confront whether admiration from a distance translates into endurance within the system. The Amish hosts authority, compassion, and conflict. The Amish community members are not passive facilitators. They serve as mentors, disciplinarians, and guardians of tradition. Bishop Vernon. Progress at a price. As a respected leader, Bishop Vernon anchors the experiment. His decision to open the community to outsiders is bold and controversial. While committed to growth, he must constantly balance compassion with enforcement. His authority is tested repeatedly as participants challenge rules, question restrictions, and struggle emotionally. Each exception risks setting a precedent. Each rejection risks failure of the experiment. Alan and Sarah. Compassion within limits. Alan and Sarah, parents to 4 adopted children, represent the gentler side of Amish mentorship. Their home becomes a place of instruction and emotional grounding, though they remain bound by the same rules they enforce. Their struggle lies in offering care without enabling compromise. James. Redemption under scrutiny. James, a former Amish man seeking reinstatement after being shunned, embodies the cost of deviation. His journey parallels the outsider's struggles, but with far greater consequences. Every misstep threatens his chance at redemption. His presence serves as a constant reminder that acceptance is conditional and reversible. Emma, between two worlds. Emma, James' cousin, recently returned to Amish life herself. While offering guidance, she navigates unresolved tensions, personal boundaries, and the pressure of being an example. Her storyline illustrates that returning to tradition can be as challenging as entering it. Romance, conflict, and final decisions. As weeks pass, emotional bonds form, some encouraged, others forbidden. Romantic tensions emerge, challenging Amish rules surrounding courtship and emotional expression. Culture clashes intensify. Breakdowns occur. Participants reach moments of crisis, where continuing means surrendering fundamental parts of themselves. By the season's end, each outsider faces a final decision: remain and pursue conversion, or leave knowing the experience has permanently altered their understanding of faith, identity, and belonging. A new chapter in TLC storytelling. Produced by Hot Snakes Media, Suddenly Amish expands TLC's tradition of immersive cultural storytelling while raising ethical and emotional stakes. According to network leadership, the series aims to humanize both sides of the divide, avoiding caricature in favor of complexity. Episodes will be available for streaming on HBO Max, broadening access to what promises to be one of TLC's most discussed premieres. Conclusion: transformation without illusion. Suddenly Amish does not present Amish life as an escape or a novelty. Instead, it exposes the cost of choosing certainty over freedom, community over individuality, and tradition over adaptability. As the outsiders learn, simplicity is not synonymous with ease. Faith is not synonymous with comfort. And belonging is never unconditional. Suddenly Amish, TLC's bold new social experiment, brings outsiders into a closed world. TLC is preparing to launch one of its most ambitious and emotionally charged reality series to date with Suddenly Amish, premiering Tuesday, January 13th, 2026 at 10:00 p.m. Eastern Time/Pacific Time. The new series places 6 non-Amish individuals inside a deeply traditional Amish community in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, offering an unprecedented look at what happens when modern lives collide with centuries-old customs. Unlike previous programs that followed Amish individuals venturing into the outside world, Suddenly Amish reverses the lens. This time, outsiders are invited in, an extraordinary and controversial move within Amish culture. The goal is twofold: to give the participants a chance at profound personal transformation and to explore whether welcoming outsiders could help address the Amish community's shrinking population. What unfolds is not a novelty experience or a temporary immersion, but a serious test of faith, discipline, and identity. A radical premise with high stakes. At the heart of Suddenly Amish is a rare experiment. While Amish youth traditionally experience Rumspringa, a period when they may explore life outside the community, outsiders are almost never allowed to live within Amish society, let alone consider conversion. In this series, a progressive group of Amish leaders and families breaks with tradition by opening their homes and daily lives to 6 English participants. The newcomers must give up nearly every modern convenience, including smartphones, electricity, indoor plumbing, fashionable clothing, and personal independence. In return, they are offered structure, spiritual grounding, and the promise of belonging. From the moment they arrive, the participants are confronted with strict rules, unyielding routines, and an expectation of humility that clashes sharply with their former lives. Life without modern comforts. The transition proves immediate and intense. Participants are required to adopt Amish dress, wake before dawn, and perform physically demanding labor. Hygiene routines are altered, privacy disappears, and personal expression is limited by community standards. These changes are not symbolic. They are enforced daily, with consequences for resistance or failure to comply. What begins as curiosity quickly turns into emotional strain as participants realize the Amish lifestyle allows little room for compromise. Culture shock becomes unavoidable, and the series does not shy away from showing the psychological toll of that adjustment. Meet the 6 outsiders. Each participant enters the experiment carrying deeply personal motivations and hidden vulnerabilities. Kendra, 33, California. A former dancer and content creator, Kendra hopes Amish life will help her escape years of body image struggles and self-objectification. However, the rigid expectations placed on women, combined with the loss of autonomy, force her to confront whether simplicity truly offers the healing she seeks. Judah, 22, Missouri. A self-described bougie rapper with a taste for luxury, Judah claims to want genuine belonging beneath his confident exterior. But his undisclosed germ phobia quickly becomes a serious obstacle as he struggles with barns, livestock, and communal living, threatening his ability to continue. Matt, 34, Texas. Recently divorced and searching for stability, Matt arrives hoping faith and discipline will help him rebuild his life as a father. His emotional openness earns respect, but the physical demands and emotional isolation test his resolve in unexpected ways. Aaron, 40, Michigan. The son of a pastor, Aaron feels drawn to the Amish devotion to faith and community. However, his hearing disability requires modern technology, placing him in direct conflict with Amish rules that prohibit such devices. His journey becomes one of the series' most complex moral dilemmas. Esmeralda, 25, Texas. Esmeralda longs for the traditional family structure she never experienced growing up. Yet her identity is deeply tied to glamour, fashion, and self-expression, elements incompatible with Amish life. Her struggle raises difficult questions about whether reinvention requires self-erasure. Billy Joe, 44, New York. A lifelong admirer of Amish culture, Billy Joe already dresses traditionally and views the experience as a dream come true. But idealism soon collides with reality as she learns that admiration from afar does not prepare her for the discipline and sacrifice required for true acceptance. The Amish hosts, guidance and judgment. The Amish participants are not passive observers. They play active roles as mentors, enforcers, and gatekeepers. Bishop Vernon, a strict and respected leader, anchors the experiment. Determined to grow his community, he balances deep-rooted tradition with an unorthodox willingness to invite outsiders inside. His decisions carry heavy consequences for both the newcomers and his own standing within the Amish world. Alan and Sarah, parents to 4 adopted children, provide warmth and patience as guiding figures. Their household becomes a rare place of emotional safety, though even they must uphold rules that challenge the outsider's limits. James, a former Amish man seeking redemption after being shunned, brings internal conflict to the forefront. His struggle to regain acceptance mirrors the outsider's journey and highlights the unforgiving nature of Amish discipline. Emma, James' cousin, has recently returned to Amish life herself. While offering support, she wrestles with her own boundaries and unresolved relationships, adding emotional complexity to the experiment. Romance, conflict, and breaking points. As the weeks progress, emotional bonds form, sometimes in ways the Amish community strictly forbids. Romantic tensions, cultural misunderstandings, and personal breakdowns become unavoidable. Several participants face moments where continuing means sacrificing parts of themselves they are not ready to give up. Others surprise the community and themselves by embracing the lifestyle more fully than expected. By season's end, each outsider must make a final decision, return to their former life or commit to the Amish path, knowing there may be no easy way back. TLC's next evolution in Amish storytelling. According to TLC executive Alon Orstian, Suddenly Amish builds on the network's legacy of immersive reality storytelling while pushing it into new emotional territory. The series aims to humanize both sides of the cultural divide, focusing less on spectacle and more on internal transformation. Produced by Hot Snakes Media, Suddenly Amish promises an intimate, often uncomfortable exploration of faith, identity, and belonging. Episodes will also be available to stream on HBO Max. As the experiment unfolds, one truth becomes clear. Stepping into Amish life is not about nostalgia or escape. It is about confronting who you are when everything familiar is stripped away. The first week, idealism collides with reality. The opening episodes of Suddenly Amish establish a sharp contrast between expectation and lived reality. While the 6 outsiders arrive with optimism and personal conviction, the Amish community wastes no time enforcing structure. There is no gradual adjustment period. Instead, The newcomers are immediately placed into working households, assigned daily labor, and expected to follow Amish customs without negotiation. Early scenes focus on confusion rather than conflict. Participants struggle with the silence, the absence of clocks, and the inability to track time. The removal of mirrors and modern hygiene routines becomes unexpectedly destabilizing, particularly for those whose former identities were closely tied to appearance or control. By the end of the first week, it becomes clear that admiration for Amish life does not equate to readiness for it. Kendra's isolation deepens. Kendra's storyline shifts quickly from hopeful reinvention to quiet emotional distress. Amish expectations for women place heavy emphasis on obedience, modesty, and domestic labor. While she initially welcomes the relief from physical scrutiny, the lack of emotional expression and creative outlets begins to erode her sense of self. As conversations are limited and emotional vulnerability is discouraged, Kendra struggles to articulate her internal conflict. Her isolation becomes one of the earliest warning signs that psychological strain is mounting beneath the surface of compliance. Amish mentors encourage patience and prayer, but Kendra increasingly questions whether silence is healing or suppressive. Judah's anxiety becomes impossible to hide. Judah's germ-related fears, initially kept private, quickly surface as a major obstacle. Communal tools, shared meals, and livestock chores trigger visible panic. His attempts to discreetly clean or avoid contact draw attention from Amish hosts, who interpret his behavior as resistance rather than anxiety. Bishop Vernon addresses the issue directly, reminding Judah that fear cannot dictate behavior within the community. The confrontation marks the first major disciplinary moment of the season. Judah is given a clear choice: confront his discomfort fully or reconsider his participation. The pressure exposes a deeper truth. Judah's desire for belonging is genuine, but his need for control may be stronger. Matt becomes a quiet pillar at a cost. Matt emerges as one of the most outwardly successful participants in the early episodes. His physical endurance and willingness to work long hours earn respect from Amish hosts. He adapts quickly to manual labor and demonstrates humility that aligns with Amish values. However, the emotional cost becomes evident. Without access to personal reflection tools or open conversation, Matt suppresses unresolved grief from his divorce. Scenes show him retreating into work as a coping mechanism. Amish mentors praise his discipline, but viewers see signs of emotional burnout building beneath his steady exterior. Aaron's conflict reaches the community council. Aaron's need for hearing-assistive technology becomes impossible to ignore by the third episode. His inability to fully participate in group discussions and religious services creates concern on both sides. The Amish community convenes informal discussions to determine whether any accommodation can be made without violating tradition. Bishop Vernon faces increasing pressure from more conservative members, who argue that exceptions undermine the integrity of Amish life. Aaron's storyline shifts from personal adaptation to communal debate, highlighting the limits of inclusivity within rigid belief systems. Esmeralda's identity crisis intensifies. Esmeralda's struggle with Amish modesty deepens as the novelty fades. The removal of self-expression leaves her feeling invisible rather than grounded. Scenes show her quietly questioning mentors about individuality, only to be reminded that Amish life prioritizes unity over distinction. Her frustration builds as she realizes that the structure she sought comes with the expectation of surrendering personal identity entirely. Emotional breakdowns follow moments of forced conformity, particularly around dress and grooming rituals. Esmeralda begins to ask whether stability, without self-recognition, is sustainable. Billy Joe's idealism is tested. Despite arriving as the most prepared participant, Billy Joe faces growing disillusionment. Her romanticized view of Amish life clashes with the rigidity of discipline and the constant scrutiny of behavior. Small infractions, asking too many questions, expressing emotional opinions, or demonstrating eagerness, are met with correction. Billy Joe begins to understand that belonging is not earned through passion alone, but through submission. Her storyline becomes a cautionary tale about idealizing tradition without fully understanding its demands. Mid-season turning points: the first exit looms. By mid-season, tension escalates as one participant seriously considers leaving. While the show avoids sensationalizing the decision, the emotional weight is palpable. Amish hosts make it clear that staying without full commitment benefits no one. Private conversations between mentors reveal growing concern that not all participants are spiritually aligned with the experiment's intent. This moment marks a tonal shift in the series, from curiosity-driven exploration to irreversible decision-making. James' redemption is threatened. James' presence becomes increasingly complicated as he struggles with temptation and self-doubt. His interactions with outsiders draw scrutiny, and any perceived misstep risks reinforcing the reasons he was previously shunned. When rumors surface of emotional boundary violations, James is confronted by Amish leadership. His storyline underscores the unforgiving nature of community judgment and the high cost of second chances. Emma, caught between loyalty and obligation, distances herself to protect her own standing, further isolating James. Romance crosses a line. As emotional bonds deepen, at least one romantic connection forms that violates Amish expectations. The relationship becomes a focal point of tension, forcing leadership to intervene. Bishop Vernon delivers one of the season's most consequential warnings, reminding participants that Amish courtship follows strict rules and emotional indulgence threatens communal order. The incident forces all participants to reassess their emotional boundaries and reinforces that personal desire holds little weight against tradition. The experiment's true question emerges. By the latter half of the season, the core question of Suddenly Amish becomes clear. The show is no longer asking whether outsiders can adapt to Amish life, but whether Amish life can or should adapt to outsiders. Each participant stands at a crossroads. Is discipline healing or restrictive? Is simplicity freeing or erasing? Is belonging worth the loss of autonomy? The answers vary, but none are simple. Toward the final decision. As the season approaches its final episodes, mentors begin preparing participants for ultimate choices. Conversations turn solemn. There are no celebrations, only reflection. Those who remain must consider baptism, lifelong commitment, and severing ties with their former lives. Those who leave must accept that the experience has changed them permanently, even without conversion. The experiment reaches its emotional peak, not with spectacle, but with quiet reckoning. The final phase, no more trial period. As Suddenly Amish enters its final episodes, the tone shifts decisively. What once felt like an experiment becomes a reckoning. Amish leadership makes it clear that the time for observation has ended. The remaining outsiders must either move toward formal commitment or prepare to leave. There are no extensions and no partial options. Participants are reminded that Amish life does not accommodate indecision. Staying requires submission to the Ordnung, the unwritten but strictly enforced code governing behavior, belief, and daily life. The absence of modern distractions now amplifies emotional clarity rather than confusion. Each participant is forced to confront what they are truly willing to sacrifice. Kendra's breaking point. Kendra reaches her emotional limit after weeks of silence, restricted communication, and the suppression of emotional expression. While she initially believed that modesty would provide relief from self-objectification, she ultimately realizes that her sense of self has been replaced with invisibility. In a private conversation with Alan and Sarah, Kendra acknowledges that while the Amish lifestyle offers structure, it leaves no space for emotional autonomy. She recognizes that healing cannot come from erasing her voice. Kendra makes the decision to leave before formal conversion discussions begin. Her exit is quiet and respectful, but deeply emotional. Amish mentors accept her choice without protest, reinforcing the reality that belonging is conditional on total alignment. Judah faces himself and walks away. Judah's internal conflict reaches its peak following another confrontation regarding his anxiety and avoidance behaviors. Despite genuine efforts to adapt, his fear remains a constant barrier. In a final meeting with Bishop Vernon, Judah admits that while he desires belonging, he cannot surrender control to the extent Amish life demands. The admission is both humbling and liberating. Judah chooses to leave, acknowledging that the discipline he seeks must come from personal accountability rather than external enforcement. His departure marks a turning point, signaling that self-awareness, not endurance, is the experiment's true measure of success. Matt stands at the threshold. Matt's journey becomes the most emotionally complex. Unlike others, he does not reach a dramatic breaking point. Instead, he arrives at a quiet crossroads. His work ethic and humility earn consistent approval from Amish leadership. Conversations turn toward baptism and long-term commitment. Yet privately, Matt struggles with the realization that Amish life would permanently distance him from his child and former support system. After days of reflection, Matt chooses to leave, not because he failed, but because the cost of staying outweighs the structure he gained. His exit is marked by mutual respect and unspoken grief. Aaron's unresolved dilemma. Aaron's storyline concludes without clear resolution. Amish leadership ultimately determines that his assistive technology cannot be accommodated without compromising tradition. While Aaron expresses deep respect for the community, he acknowledges that faith should not require the denial of physical needs. His departure highlights the limits of ideological inclusion. The decision sparks quiet debate among Amish hosts, suggesting that while the experiment ends, its questions linger. Esmeralda's moment of truth. Esmeralda's final episodes focus on self-recognition. After weeks of internal struggle, she admits that while she craves stability, she cannot sacrifice self-expression entirely. In a reflective conversation with Emma, Esmeralda articulates a realization that reshapes her journey. Structure without selfhood becomes confinement. She leaves with clarity rather than regret, recognizing that the life she seeks cannot be found through submission alone. Billy Joe's choice: commitment or idealism. Billy Joe becomes the final participant to face a decision. Having outlasted others, she confronts the reality that admiration is not equivalent to devotion. Despite her deep respect for Amish life, she ultimately recognizes that true belonging requires surrender beyond what she is willing to give. Her choice to leave is marked by disappointment, but not bitterness. Her departure reinforces one of the series' central truths: preparation does not guarantee compatibility. The Amish perspective: quiet consequences. For the Amish hosts, the conclusion of the experiment brings mixed emotions. While no participant fully commits to conversion, the community gains insight into how outsiders perceive their way of life. Bishop Vernon reflects on the tension between preservation and growth, acknowledging that openness carries risk. Alan and Sarah express gratitude for the experience, despite its emotional toll. James' redemption remains uncertain. His exposure to temptation and scrutiny leaves his standing fragile, underscoring the unforgiving nature of communal judgment. Emma, having navigated emotional boundaries throughout the season, emerges more guarded but resolute in her commitment to Amish life. Ethical questions and audience reaction. As the season concludes, Suddenly Amish sparks conversation beyond the screen. Viewers question whether true consent is possible within such rigid structures, and whether the experiment places undue emotional pressure on participants. Critics note the imbalance of power between hosts and outsiders, while supporters argue that the series presents Amish life honestly, without romanticization. The show does not offer answers. Instead, it presents lived experience and allows audiences to confront their own assumptions about faith, freedom, and fulfillment. What Suddenly Amish ultimately reveals. Suddenly Amish succeeds not because participants convert, but because they confront themselves. The series dismantles the fantasy of simplicity as an escape and replaces it with a more complex truth. Structure can guide, but it can also confine. By stripping away modern life, the experiment reveals what participants value most and what they cannot relinquish. In the end, no one fails. They simply learn. Final reflection. TLC's Suddenly Amish stands as one of the network's most introspective reality offerings. It resists spectacle in favor of consequence, offering a measured examination of belief systems colliding with personal identity. The series does not argue for or against Amish life. Instead, it asks a quieter, more unsettling question: how much of yourself are you willing to give up in order to belong?